the Wrestling Mat. It's good to be with you here on this Wednesday. Black and white really shines off, huh? My clear face. I got a haircut just for you guys, because yes, indeed. What's up, John? What's up, WWE for Life? Good to have you all with us here, as always, as we do every single weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern at TheWrestlingMatchShow.com. And I want to say thank you right now, because we passed 4,000 subscribers overnight. A lot of you were very interested in hearing about Bobby Lashley. I saw a lot of people take a look at that one. We appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed yet, you can do so right now at TheWrestlingMatchShow.com. It's always right above Todd. What up, Todd? We talk about all things professional wrestling here. We do it every single weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And we love to have you with us. Whether you're watching live, a lot of you are always in the chat. We got the most interactive pro wrestling show out there. Always the hot chat. Make sure you get your super chats in. They move to the front of the line. We've been doing giveaways as it relates to super chats. And ask J Love Sports, because they got a super chat in and have won a Double J, Jeff Jarrett signed Bendy. More giveaways coming your way. But as always, super chats get you to the front of the line. We take your questions there, and I appreciate even J Love saying, hey, this can wait for later. But if you have anything that's pressing, you want to make sure it's covered before anybody else, you can do that right now at TheWrestlingMatchShow.com by subscribing, by checking out our community, and by checking out our memberships. I've talked about this a lot. We'll talk about it throughout the show. But for SummerSlam next weekend, if you sign up for our brand new memberships, there are 3 tiers. They start at right above Todd. Above that is the mid-card, and then the Mat event. But if you sign up for any of them, and they start at $2.99, you can watch SummerSlam with me next weekend. Anybody in any membership tier, and this is not going to always be the case, but anybody in any membership tier can join us. Members-only watch party of SummerSlam next weekend right here at TheWrestlingMatchShow.com. So go check that out. A lot of different tiers for you guys to check out. I'll run through that very quickly. If you're at that base level right above Todd, you will get entry into our members-only live chats, priority reply to comments. You will get discounts on the upcoming merch. You will also get to be part of our special AMAs, the Ask Me Anythings. If you're in the mid-card, we're going to be doing live streams of Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, Collision, probably once a month. You could be part of that chat, very live, very interactive. I'll also be doing some special content just for you guys, including my top 5 SummerSlam matches, and much more of that content will be coming. And if you're in the tier above that, the Mat event, you get everything I just mentioned. Plus, I will follow you from the Matt Camp 23 on Instagram and on Twitter, and we'll do the same thing from Wrestling Matt 23. If you're in that tier for 90 days, you'll get a special piece of merchandise. Also, we'll take one person randomly drawn from that top tier, the Mat event. Every single month, you'll get a private 30-minute AMA with me. And also, if you're in that top tier, we're going to let someone each month pick out one show from any time in wrestling history, and we'll watch it right here. All of the members at the Wrestling Mat. So make sure you check that out. But most importantly, especially with it coming up next weekend, subscribe and hit that first membership tier, any membership tier starting at $2.99, and you can watch SummerSlam with us right here next weekend. Hello to Hassan. Hello to Legendary. What's up to Code? Good to have you here. Good to have all of you here. I miss you on that show. That is usually on Wednesdays, and it's not, and it's been like a long time. Don't worry. I'm here. I'm always here on a Wednesday and a Monday and a Tuesday and a Thursday and a Friday and other days. Sometimes I pop up live. You will only know that if you're subscribed to the WrestlingMatchShow.com. So please make sure you do that. And like I said, super chats get you to the front. As we're discussing a lot here on the show today, we're going to talk some NXT. We're going to talk some Blood and Guts. We're going to talk a little bit of the news that's out there. Yes, Rob, that is indeed correct. We went over 4,000. By the way, some of the reason maybe we went over 4,000 subscribers in a pretty short period of time, honestly. No machine behind this one. Very small team and a hell of a team we have here. But big reason of that is because people were very interested in what I had to say about Bobby Lashley, my time working with him, how he was let down by creative, some of the creative pitches for the Hurt Business that never made air, including some superstars that you're seeing on TV right now, didn't make air. Why am I calling them superstars? Whatever. It was in the time. Whatever. Anyway, that's there. Talked about Cody Rhodes last week, my time working with him on the indies, how he handles himself as a top guy, how he handles himself behind the scenes. We've talked about how I knew the plans for Dominic Mysterio in the Judgment Day, and he wasn't in the Judgment Day when you all thought he was in the Judgment Day. That's a weird thing to say, but I covered that. You can check it out at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. And yesterday, I was going to talk all about Monday Night Raw. And for some reason, I got onto Punk, and that turned into a very long discussion, and one that I don't think a lot of people know about, of how WWE reacted to CM Punk showing up on WWE Backstage. Yes, it had to get approved, but it didn't make him a WWE employee. It did not necessarily put him in the good graces of WWE. I covered all of that and what maybe a potential comeback for Steve Austin could look like if it were to be against CM Punk. All of that available at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. Make sure you're following us on social media at WrestlingMat23 because we have shorts going up on Instagram. We post stuff on Twitter. And, of course, right here on our YouTube page, you get shorts, you get reels, you get all that stuff. It's all there for you. Make sure you follow along. Yes, indeed. Tom says, kind of like Lance Storm at an ECW house show, no bump. Or as I told the story on Monday, kind of like MVP and Carlito on a House of Hardcore show at midnight before WrestleMania 34, performance art with no bumps. And that's, ladies and gentlemen, a learning experience. And I got a lot from that. Excuse me. This is, by the way, I did find out I lied to you guys. And Olipop, if you want to come aboard, we'll take you. This actually has a little caffeine in it, like a little bit. And I thought I hadn't had any in like 3 weeks. I've had like 3 of those in 3 weeks. So still a cut down. Although I'm very fired up today. I want to get that right. I don't have to say the full name, just Yo B. Yo B, I love to learn how to say names the right way. Not enough people in sports or wrestling do that. It's a little better than it used to be. It is. It's a little better than it used to be. But I still hate when I hear names get mispronounced. Think about what the former Collision commentator did. I'm not even going to say his name because he might sue me based on everything he's yelled about on Twitter. Not being able to say Andrade. That whole thing. Code says, hey, Matt, you're Canadian, right? I'm from Newfoundland, so you can guess I'm a Bret Hart guy. I take that as a compliment. It's my favorite country outside of the one I was born in, which is the United States. So, Code, I have a lot of Canadian friends. I love the country. I was in Montreal recently. I've been to Toronto many times. Love Canada. Want to explore more. Not Canadian. I'll take it. City and local. You figured it out very quickly. Although I don't think you should call him that either. I don't think that's a good word anymore. God, that was from a bygone era. He'd probably still use it, but no, you shouldn't use it now. And also, as Rob said, we love Rush. Rob's bachelor party was in Toronto. We went to a Blue Jays game. We played the Pass the Hat game. The Pass the Hat game at a baseball game makes it 1,000,000 times better. 1,000,000 times better. I'll talk. You don't want to hear about baseball stuff, but basically, everybody puts $1 in at the beginning of an inning, and each batter you just say where they're going to hit it to. And if you're wrong, you pass the hat. And that person guesses. And at the end of every inning, if there's still money, everybody else adds $1. But if you're right, you get the money. We had a great time at the Blue Jays A's, Blue Jays Tigers. I just remember hearing Limelight a bunch of time. Joseph, your channel rocks, man. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Oh, Dom, Arkells, absolutely. Yes, I learned that from Jay Onright, from TSN, big Arkells guy. City and local. Greetings from Calgary. You got to check out Brett's Bar next time you're in town. Oh, man, Brett's Bar looks awesome. The pink and the black and all the memorabilia, and I love Brett's post about that. Calgary's a place I want to go. I wanted to go to the Grey Cup for quite some time. I've wanted to... When they had the Heritage Classic there years ago, I wanted to go. Obviously, the Calgary Stampede. I would have loved to have been there for all the festivities and obviously the Owen Finals. I would like to get out there at some time. I'm pretty sure, and you can let me know, City and local. Maybe not during the winter. Maybe save that for more of a warm time. He's there every week. He walks around the tables and says hello. The Saddle Dome. Oh, man. Calgary love. And The guy who I always quote at the end of the show, Tim Naki, who's from New Zealand but lives in Calgary and does all the blackjack stuff, he's the one who says, and we'll be back and we'll be betting even more. That's where I got, we'll see you tomorrow. We'll be talking about wrestling even more. He lives in Calgary. He's from New Zealand, and he's become this unbelievable social media star because of the blackjack stuff. Canada, as we can tell, I love the place. I'd love to be there more. Got to get out to Vancouver. I've heard wonderful things. Banff has been talked about in my household a lot. We're 11 minutes in, and this is the stuff I'm talking about. You know what, legendary Yobi? I'm glad you brought that up. Let's get into that. So you ask, with the partnership with WWE and TNA, do you think their partnership will turn into a joint pay-per-view? Would love to see that seriously. So I want to hit on, to start the show today, all of the partnerships that have gone on, are going on, and may go on. And I say that because Tony Khan's doing media this week. So is MJF and the Young Bucks. By the way, come on over to the wrestling mat. Love to have you. And he was asked about doing a super show with WWE. And, I don't want to say he danced around it, but he said, I'd love to do it someday, but it's very difficult to do, and there's a lot of politics involved. And I know you can go, well, yeah, and he was in a neck brace a few months ago on NFL Network, comparing WWE to that Hollywood producer and all this stuff. Yeah, I don't think Tony wants to work with a company that he doesn't feel good about working with or doesn't trust or whatever. I think Tony, as a wrestling fan, not Tony Khan, the owner and booker, Tony Khan as a wrestling fan, was on message boards, was going to the ECW arena, there's stuff of him at WWE shows. I've heard stories recently, by the way, of Tony at WWE shows back in the day, before AEW, because he's a fan. I think Tony Khan, the fan, would love there to be a super show. I think, look at who he has signed that has been in WWE. He's keeping up on everything because he's still a fan. And some people that are in WWE now may end up in AEW, or vice versa. That's the nature of the business. Another reason why it's good to have another financially competitive company. Your favorites, when their contract comes up, have some negotiating power. Well, I could go over there. Don't assess the health of the creative. There is money to be made in wrestling, and very good money in at least two companies right now. That's a good thing. I think Tony would look and go, man, I would love to put these dream matches together. What could that be? How many times has Kenny Omega and Roman Reigns been brought up? Who wouldn't want to see that match? Him as a fan would want to. A lot of us as fans would love to see what that match looks like. Mix and match as you will. Hangman against Randy Orton. Maybe too similar, but you know what I'm saying. So I think he talks about it that way. But also, when you go to the business side, there's a reason that WWE and AEW, you're not going to see a joint show, whereas you're going to see WWE and TNA work together. WWE work with GCW with Bloodsport. WWE send AJ Styles over to Noah. WWE send Io Sky over to Marigold, letting Julia work there until she comes over to NXT. Because they can control it. Because all of those companies are in no position to control those partnerships. All of those companies will take any rub that they can get. And think about the matches. They're not within... We'll get to NXT in a second. AJ and Marufuji was a special attraction. Was a one-off. Was not within the storylines of Noah. Hayashi Shita and Io was a one-off, a special attraction. That's a working agreement. Marufuji's going to be a special guest for SummerSlam. the Abema deal or Abema, whatever it's called, in Japan and the amount of wrestling that's part of that deal or that is broadcast via them, including WWE, they want their footprint everywhere. And now WWE is huge everywhere for the most part, but they want a bigger footprint in some of these places. If you've noticed, going back to last year and even this year, how many more international major events there are. They know there is a thirst for it. They know that we went to France. We ran some shows during that, and bang, we ran SmackDown, we ran Backlash. Look at that. Look at what they've done in Europe. Look at what they did in Scotland. Think about the first Clash of the Castle. Think about, look what Puerto Rico looked like. The crowds that they have drawn for live events, no TV in Chile. You talk to anybody in WWE that's worked in Chile, whatever. I'm trying to get that right. Argentina, that's worked down there in the last 5 years, and they'll go, my God, I can't wait. They're so happy to work in front of those crowds. There is, I believe it's there, the arena they run down there. There's a big parking garage that's levels and levels. I think it's a parking garage. That when the wrestlers come out to go back to the hotels, there are fans filled up for levels just chanting and being excited about that. They love working in that kind of atmosphere. People were so happy to work in San Jose. Beautiful place on top of everything else. I know a lot of people that, I did the kickoff show from Stanford. But here's Wade doing a pre-tape on the beach and things like that. Nice places to go, sure, travel the world. But when the fans are that excited, when they do Bash at Berlin, oh my goodness. And you can hear it. They went over to Japan. A lot of them left yesterday. And that's why they pre-taped SmackDown for this week. There's a Japan tour. They're working multiple dates, and Meiko Satomura's back on that. She's going to be in the mix. She's tagging with Jade and Bianca. Like, what a random trios tag. Chile, thank you very much. Yo, you're helping us out a lot. I appreciate that. But they are seeing how strong their fan bases are in these places. And they're seeing that people want to go there. And they have charged a lot of money for some of these tickets. And people are paying that money. That's the product right now. It's that hot. They want that footprint. I'm not even talking about Saudi. That's a whole other deal altogether. City and local saying Germany might outdo the France crowd. Maybe. And you know what? They want to challenge that. They put that noise meter up because they want... I know it was checked. I think either Brandon Durst or John Pollock. By the way, I will be joining them at 3:30 Eastern today. Make sure you go check that out later. We'll post more about that on social. And as Tom noted here, they're getting site fees. This is, to that point, this is something that the NFL gets for the Super Bowl. Years out. The cities, the owners of the teams in the stadiums that they play in for the Super Bowl, which we have a lot of international here. The Super Bowl, the championship of NFL football, is always played at a predetermined site. It's happened a couple times where the team has been able to play in their own stadium, but it's a predetermined site. And they get a lot of money just based on the economy to get the Super Bowl, what that generates. And the Super Bowl, if you go to it, there's a football game at the end of it, but there's all kinds of BS before it. It is a landing space for celebrities and endorsements and commercials. Radio Row used to be this private thing where the local stations from around the country would come in and they'd set up for the week, and it would just be a cavalcade of celebrities and athletes and just promoting. Now they sell tickets to the damn thing, and the Super Bowl week is, there's also a football game, but promotion and parties and launch this. And I told the story. Go back at the WrestlingMatchShow.com archives. I talked about my experience covering the Super Bowl in Miami 4 or 5 years ago on behalf of WWE. I didn't even stay for the game. And a lot of people do that, by the way. A lot of people who go down for the Super Bowl are there all week and they go, yeah, I've covered it all. I've done what I needed to get in terms of my news job or content creation, whatever. And they go back and watch the game at home. People don't typically stay for the game. Those are the fans who are paying thousands of dollars for tickets. But cities and stadiums, they want that. They want that game. New Orleans knows how to do it. Miami knows how to do it. Miami had to renovate their stadium to get it back. Vegas, California. And then you've seen some of the newer stadiums. I went to that Super Bowl at MetLife. Oof, what a mess. Minnesota was cold. And more of these places will go after it. The new stadiums want it, and it generates unbelievable amounts of money. Well, guess what? Think about WrestleMania. I'd say last 10 years. Tom, you might be able to help me out with this a little bit if you're still in the chat. The last 10 plus years, maybe even before that, maybe 15, of how the entire wrestling world converges on the city where WrestleMania is. And WrestleMania on its own, which is now 2 nights, and you got the Hall of Fame and NXT and SmackDown and Raw. That alone, Rob talking about hotels and restaurants and that money that brings in and those places, that alone brings in so much. But now, every other wrestling company, Indies, TNA's done it, Ring of Honor under Tony's done it, Ring of Honor before Tony's done it. They get in that city. They run some kind of show. You'll see wrestlers who are hot wrestle 7, 8, 9, 10 times on a WrestleMania week because there's shows going on all the time. And some great people on social media put, here's the whole schedule of the week. And there's this, and there's GCW, and the local places get to run, or some people come into town and run, and the Super Show, and WrestleCon has, all of that stuff. So the entire wrestling world converges on that city. And there's so much going on. My first Mania, working a Mania, and I told the story, I think yesterday or Monday, was New Orleans before WrestleMania 34, or the week of 34. I was working for House of Hardcore. We had a show right after NXT, and that was the WrestleCon arena. So all the shows that were associated with that ran that arena. There was another arena, and Ring of Honor was running like outside of town. But WrestleCon, there's legends, there's current people, there's WWE legends who are under Legends contracts who might show up at Mania or coming over, and they're signing for 3 or 4 hours. There you go. Tom said, ROH started running Mania 2004. 20 freaking years. Wow. That's nuts. So, he said started running Mania 2004. But, Evolve had run there, and I remember, I guess PWG ran one, which was a different kind of show. But they were out in L.A. L.A. was a big one as well. And that's what it's become. But so many fans. And this is why the Raw After Mania crowds were a thing. It was such an international crowd. I talked about recently, once again, in the archives at WrestlingMatchShow.com. I talked about how when I went to WrestleMania 29, which was a letdown show, the next night, the Ziggler cash-in, the crowd taking over the show, Cena does the heel turn, all that stuff. That was such an international, lively, excited crowd, and WWE kind of went, it's Bizarro World, or what, all that stuff. And then it became go to the Raw After Mania, and then it wasn't that same kind of crowd. And honestly, the show hasn't really been booked at that level in a couple years, which is a bummer. They always seem to save a comeback or two, not to happen at Mania, but to happen the next night. Not necessarily the case or as big of a deal anymore. But that was, and that has been, what's made WWE so attractive. Is much like the Super Bowl, it brings in a ton of money to these cities. So guess what? They bid on it now. And you hear about Minnesota getting what they're getting. And you hear about Cleveland getting shows and Indianapolis signing this multi-event deal. That, by the way, is the difference between Vince McMahon running the show and Nick Khan with Endeavor. Vince was still a wrestling guy, sports entertainment guy. But WWE had, and this is not about any other crap with Vince. Pardon the pun. Wasn't intended. It hit a ceiling. And Nick Khan, and I'll tell you this, when I worked there, Nick Khan broke through that ceiling and was making more connections. And you're seeing the fact that it's like, oh yeah, Patrick Mahomes is just here. They would beg for anybody notable to show up at shows. Or it would be like, oh, this guy is kind of a celebrity. And now it's just like, no, they get everybody. That's the level that they've gotten WWE to. It's a much bigger picture. When I started interning in NFL films 17 years ago, I walked in the building and I was told right away, we are a film company that focuses on football and not the other way around. WWE is an entertainment company that focuses on wrestling, not a wrestling company that focuses on entertainment. It's a much broader range. They're having this Fanatics Fan Fest and Cody selling out and Punk selling out and Rhea selling out with major athletes there. That tells you where they're at. It's just a broader range with bigger partnerships, and that means more money's coming in. And then you can have these city deals. That's big. That is big and broad and important. Now we're going from bidding on WrestleMania to bidding on the Royal Rumble to bidding on SummerSlam. And WWE wants to control all those things. So with these partnerships, now it's broadening out even more. Well, how do we get a footprint in France? How do we get a footprint in Japan? They really want China. Why wouldn't you? They tried India a few years ago, where the whole gender thing, not a bad idea. It was poorly done. The execution, it wasn't just like, well, let's heat up this guy who's Indian. At least that's how we present him. And that'll work. That'll get our, all the people that watch our stuff on YouTube. No, it's not that easy. And I think also the presentation has always been too stereotypical and there's not enough depth. You had a guy who had a movie made about him. $1 Million Arm and all that stuff. Hindu Share. Did they explore that? No. Did they explore his personality, who he was? No, it was updated, stereotypical garbage. Navy bringing up India. Rinka King. I thought they did a great job with that. They fit it to what the country needed or what they expected. Jeff Jarrett's got at least one, maybe two podcasts about that. I remember talking to him about that. They structured that offshoot promotion to what the people there expected and what they would be able to enjoy and digest. They did a good job with it. Not on a grand scale, but they did a good job with it. WWE is thinking that way. I think Hunter, there's that famous picture of Hunter standing in front of a big map, and there's just like arrows coming out of USA, and there's NXT here, and there'll be an NXT here, and there'll be an NXT here, and it didn't go anywhere. Not really. I think the idea was right. I think he needed help. I don't think he got the support he wanted in that from Vince and others. And I don't think they knew how to execute it the correct way. I think they're there now. I think they have the right people who can make that kind of stuff happen. And part of that is these partnerships. So, do I think an AEW WWE Super Show could ever happen? Yes. Do I think it'll happen anytime soon? No. No. Because Tony Khan is not going to fall in line, and nor should he. TNA is on Access TV. They have a streaming service. There's ways to watch them internationally. They are nowhere near the level they were at their heights. 17 years ago? A long time ago. And their Thursday night program is not available in nearly the amount of homes that the other wrestling shows are. And I don't think that's going to change. And I know the way they're running things, they're certainly being tight with money and regime change and all that stuff. And, you know, there's been talk of how they've tried to upgrade things and whatever. They know their place in the industry. Anytime something big happens in WWE or AEW, it's a return or some big moment with somebody, if that person has any kind of TNA highlights, the TNA social team's very good. They're ready to go with that, and they post it. They know their place. They're not a competitor. They haven't been a competitor. Jeff Jarrett has talked about TNA was never supposed to become a competitor for WWE. Dixie Carter talked that way because she didn't know shit about wrestling and had the wrong people in her ear, Hogan and Bischoff included, who foolishly tried to run against Monday Night Raw. Definitely go listen to that podcast for all those great insights. But TNA knows their place now. If you asked me, would WWE like to eventually buy TNA? Yeah, I can see that. I've talked about it on the show. I would love to see their library, which has a hell of a lot of stuff, great stuff, with a lot of different WWE people. I mean, AJ Styles is the first thing that comes to mind. I would love to see that footage get integrated a lot more. To be part of, and they've licensed stuff here and there, but to be used more of career retrospectives. They're doing these biographies in A&E. And, you know, Trish is this week, and they had Miz on. Like, if you want to do a full biography of somebody, I want to see as much of their career as you can. And there's been times that they've licensed ROH footage pre-Tony, and they've taken, you know, pictures of, okay, this was them in ROH. I think they did it with AJ and Seth for like their first match, which then I was able to talk about when that happened. But stuff like that, I think, is where WWE can thrive. Now, would they buy it and let it run on its own, or just take who they want? Listen, I wouldn't be surprised by that either. Think about it at WWE UK or NXT UK. The UK scene was back in a big way, was back and strong, and WWE sensed that. And initially, it was Pete Dunne, and it was Tyler Bate. And it was Trent Seven. Yeah, Mustache Mountain. And they ran the tournament, which was great. Great atmosphere, great crowd. But they basically snatched up anybody that was hot other than Ospreay on that UK scene. And then it was, well, they'll still be allowed to work in other places. And then it was slowly like, well, they can't work. It has to be replaced. Or actually, they can't work at all. And that was it. Now, was it worth it for the talent? Yeah, Pete Dunne is probably making excellent money. Will probably be a producer. Has already produced stuff in NXT. I know Tyler Bate got hurt, but he made the move over. And NXT, Raw, whatever. That's a different number hitting his bank account every 2 weeks than it was in NXT UK. Rob bringing up Walter, thinking about how long it took for him to finally go, okay, I'll move. Doing what he did over there with WXW. Progress when it was at its heights. Things like that. But eventually, what's the idea? What we're seeing on Mondays. All of this, while it's to have that global footprint, it's also to get people on the main shows. That's what matters most. In the big picture, it is not about WWE giving back to TNA. It is not about WWE giving back to Noah or giving back to EO. They're using them. It's a business partnership, but it's not an equal one. And when you're in the position that WWE is in, it doesn't have to be an equal one. Now, you want to make sure you get something out of it. Joe Hendry came over to NXT. Seems to be active now. What has WWE given back to TNA that's an equal? Tatum Paxley? Izzy Dame? The No Quarter Catch Crew? Now, I said when this all started, that's the best way for WWE to get even more out of this. Is people who need work can go work in TNA. You need more reps. You're working with people with more experience. You get out of that friggin' performance center. You get out of Florida. You get your feet wet somewhere else. That's good. But once again, that's WWE getting more out of it than TNA. They're getting people that they want, some experience. The Noah deal. All right, they got AJ Styles. That was cool. Tavion Heights, Josh Briggs are in their N1. They're in their tournament. Because they want to get more out of them. Oh, well, Mary Fuji's coming over for SummerSlam. All right. Rossi, just all that stuff with the stardom, and he gets out of there because he was clearly already in bed with WWE. Took Julia with him. Starts his own promotion. WWE goes, yeah, we got Julia. She can go work over there. Oh, we'll give you EO. That ain't going to be the last time that stuff happens. There's another place WWE can pick from, while also making that global footprint even bigger. If you're getting the picture here, WWE is always going to make out the best in these situations. I don't know how much they care about those relationships staying strong and blossoming. Is it, we'll go with it as long as we need it and we'll move on. Now, those other companies should want to put themselves in a position where they come out better when it's over. I don't know if TNA is getting out of it what they should be. And I don't think Tony Khan is going to work with WWE, because then, even if it's one-off Super Show, somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. You know, the TNA AEW relationship was interesting. And there'll be people from TNA, so this, you know, this one's better. Well, yeah, they're in it right now. You know, Moose said it was better. Has Moose gotten anything out of this? Is he saying that so he pops up on NXT? Hell, I would say the same thing if I was him. TNA sold, whatever it was, 4,000 seats, I guess, for Slammiversary in Montreal with a big local guy on it. Couple, Mike Bailey and PCO. Okay. Maybe there's some of the intrigue of WWE being part of it. They weren't a big part of it. Joe Hendry beat Moose, or pinned Moose. Didn't win the match. Nick Nemeth won the match. And Nick talked about this. By the way, I'll be on Busted Open with Nick and Thunder Rosa this Friday. First time working with those two in such a capacity. So check that out. I'll also be on Busted Open tomorrow with Tommy Dreamer. And next week with Tommy Dreamer. More on that. That's for Busted Open time. But I will be on Busted Open the next 2 days hosting. But Nick said, listen, because he had to answer the questions of why did Joe Hendry win? Well, Joe pinned Moose. Moose hasn't been beaten in quite some time. Nick Nemeth didn't pin Moose. He was the last guy remaining in that elimination match. But Joe got something out of it. Maybe that builds him up. As Nick said, well, now he's got a right to my championship. Now on the NXT side, and I'll just kind of work in the NXT stuff here because NXT didn't do a hell of a lot for me last night. Joe Hendry sets up a match, and he's feuding with Gallus now. And he's going to do the concert next week, and he put the flyers over everywhere. There he is. The Great American Bash with Scotland's own Joe Hendry. Good for him. WWE is getting way more out of Joe Hendry than TNA is. Joe was the digital media title. He's over. He's got viral stuff. His theme song is 4 years old. And now he's got a machine behind him. He's got a machine behind him. And now I think, just based on flashing his face up after Ethan Page won the NXT title, you expect Joe Hendry on NXT. Davey said it. Poaching. Jordan Grace set her contracts up in next January. You don't think she'll have a deal waiting for her from WWE? I think I've seen Joe in some interviews say he's got multiple years left. All right. If Joe Hendry, and I've said this and I don't know the answer because time will tell. If Joe Hendry is a comedic flash in the pan, and there isn't much more to this, if it's a Fandango situation, if it's a Sandow situation, things like that, then WWE will squeeze that orange and get as much juice out of it as they can. And if there isn't more to it, that'll be that. But if there is more to it, and Joe becomes more of a legitimate threat, or, and this is not a bad thing, he finds himself in the Santino role, the R-Truth role. Hell, Funaki played this as the number one announcer, that kind of thing. That's a nice spot to be in. Not as many bumps. You have fun. You're beloved. Everybody's happy to see you. If you have a couple of magical runs where you get a chance to go for the title, sure. Santino, think about the Rumble. Think about the Elimination Chamber. But that's it. He wasn't going to WrestleMania. He's gotten prominent spots at WrestleMania, but he wasn't going there. If Joe Hendry lands in that kind of role, hell, I think he'd be thrilled. Once again, a lot of people bring, wow, even Rikishi, why doesn't Jey Uso have a title? Jey Uso's on Raw every week, gets a special entrance, has a ton of merch, is selling a ton of merch. People love him. You don't need a title for that. That's consistent booking that is being presented in a big spotlight every single week on the number one show in the company. If Joe Hendry found him in a Santino comedy-esque role in WWE for the next 5 to 6 years, he would be thrilled. Sure, you want to have certain matches and all that. But if you are consistently booked and featured, that's what you're looking to get out of this. Seems like that, like on NXT right now. People would be bummed if Joe Hendry didn't show up. Now, he's booked for Great American Bash and all that stuff. But the next time he's not on the show, people will be bummed. And it doesn't, somebody's bringing up about his wrestling. Nobody cares about Joe Hendry's matches. Nobody. I promise. This is the same thing with Broken Matt Hardy. I told the story recently, how he had signed with WWE. He was booked for House of Hardcore. He had 2 matches. He was supposed to wrestle in 2 nights. It was bait and switched because it had to be. Nobody came to watch Matt Hardy wrestle. Nobody cared about Broken Matt Hardy in-ring matches. The compound stuff, seeing him do the gimmick. Nobody cared about Santino Marella matches. You got one comedy spot. You got the backstage stuff. You got the stuff with Beth Phoenix. You got him cutting in-ring promos, calling him John Cena. That's what Joe Hendry is. And that's not a bad thing. It's not. It's not the focus of him. Somebody brought up, there you go, Navy, Enzo. Enzo is an okay worker at best. But he was the ultimate opening match act in the best way possible. I went to multiple NXT house shows where him and Cass opened the show. I went to NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, where who opened the show? Cass and Enzo. And that place was unglued. You ask any wrestler on a pay-per-view where they want to be, first or last. You want to get that crowd when they are frothing at the mouth, when they're excited to be there. You want them at their absolute peak of energy. Everybody else hopes it's there by the end of the night. But if you're out there to start and you get them to that level, you're doing a hell of a job. Enzo did that. Everybody plays different roles. WWE and this partnership with TNA. What does a crossover pay-per-view look like if you want to go there? Who have we seen featured in NXT from TNA? Joe Hendry, Jordan Grace. Frankie Kazarian was in the Battle Royal? Am I missing anybody? Ash by Elegance showed up at the Battleground pay-per-view for 4 seconds, and that went nowhere? Sure, people would know who Moose is. It doesn't mean it would be a big deal. Sorry, Rascal's come over too. Okay. But it's small. Yeah, if Ziggler popped back up, it would be funny what they would call him. Would they call him Nick Nemeth? I guess they would. But like what it... Kind of seen it already. Especially in NXT. Hell, he was the NXT champion a couple years ago. What actually feels like it's even playing ground? That's also what you have to think about there. Who is on that level in TNA? What's the obvious answer there? Is there one? Yeah, I'd love to see PCO show up and see what the hell that would look like. But you also then have to introduce, it's not on that level. AEW work with TNA. TNA doesn't have to introduce AEW people. Doing Kenny Omega and Christian Cage, everybody knows who those people are. People, when the Good Brothers were in TNA, they knew who they were already if you're coming over AEW. I don't have some big list of people in TNA that I would be excited about to see show up in WWE. I don't. Because I'm also thinking about the business and who's going to draw. You have to, as much as some of you, which is great, I appreciate that, know who they are. A lot don't know who those people are because they've never been put in that spotlight. They've never had that big run. Eddie Edwards has been in TNA forever now. ROH before that. One NXT tryout match with Davey Richards. 400 people, or whatever the hell the number is in the PC, sure, they might know. But you're also broadcasting to much more than that. You have to introduce who they are. WWE put time into Jordan Grace and who she is. She became a regular part of their programming leading into the paper. She got a win. She got promo time. She got featured on social media. Joe Hendry, same thing. He got his own entrance. He got to cut a promo. He got thrown out. People got pissed off. And what did they do? They promoted it. He popped up the end of the pay-per-view. He's been on TV ever since. You have to introduce these people to a greater audience. You can't assume that they know. Yobi just said it. You're broadcasting to the world. And I'm not trying to knock the roster. There's a hell of a lot of talent there. But more people need to know who that is. Yes, people know who Nick Nemeth is. They know Dolph Ziggler. But there's not a lot of those names in TNA right now. Hell, one of the most probably known names would be Brian Myers, who's best known for a losing streak and being the tag partner of Zack Ryder. There's not a lot of that. There's not a lot of well-known names. If you did it with AEW, they're a bigger show, but you have Jon Moxley, Chris Jericho, Bryan Danielson, Claudio Castagnoli. It's on TBS and TNT. It's a bigger show. It's a bigger company. It's got a bigger reach. It's got bigger social, all that stuff. I'll even bring this up. CM Punk has made multiple inside references to AEW, and they have fallen on deaf ears. He did it at the Tribute to the Truth SmackDown. He talked about some kind of fight or whatever. Like, nobody got it. He made a joke the other day about, there's fans over here. There's fans behind the hard cam. Got him, Phil. It added nothing to his story. It added nothing to the Drew story. It added nothing to the stuff he was doing with Seth. It was this weird shot. It was a bootlicking comment by CM Punk, honestly. Who years ago hated the place. And now because he works here, now I'll take shots at the other. The majority of WWE fans know WWE because they're number one and they have the greatest reach and they want to have a greater reach. And that's just fine. That's smart business. But to sum this all up, any kind of partnership they have is to benefit them first and foremost. It's up to the other companies to fight for themselves, to get more out of it, to take advantage of that rub, of that WWE spotlight. I hope TNA can do that. I hope these other companies actually do get something out of it. And it puts spotlight on talent we've never seen before. I hope that's the case. AEW is not going to benefit from that. AEW, yeah, on paper, there's a hell of a card you could put together between, we could finally see that Seth Rollins-Will Ospreay match. Who wins? You want to do, what's your Gunther match? How about Gunther and Okada? Sure. Who wins? Then what happens? Somebody just brought up ECW. Think about what they did in 96. Stuff on Raw, Sabu jumping off the Raw sign. I think they actually got something out of it. I think they made the most of their minutes. I also think WWE was in a very different spot at that time. Because WWE needed that shot in the arm. Because the NWO and WCW had started to pick up a lot of momentum. So RVD or Taz or Sabu or Heyman running his mouth and then Lawler showing up. WWE needed ECW, and ECW took advantage of what they got out of that whole thing. The Mind Games match or show in Philly and Sandman and those guys hopping the rail and only certain WWE people knowing about it. You may have seen RVD like I did and went, who the hell is that? I'm going to go follow him. What happened 5 years later? RVD's in WWE. Taz is in WWE. The Dudley Boys are in WWE. Tommy Dreamer's in WWE. They bought the company. They helped the company, then they bought the company. I don't know if that'll happen with TNA. But somebody just said, would either company benefit from a super show? As a one-off, no, it is probably fantasy booking. You know what? That's fun for us. That's fun for us to talk about. That's fun for us to make videos about, to tweet about. Hell, I did a whole show about that in WWE. Would it matter? Would it be beneficial to WWE? Would it draw more than WWE's drawing right now? Probably not. There's a point made, look at the SmackDown ratings without Roman. Still pretty good. I would think they'll go up a little bit when he comes back, if he's even on SmackDown. Roman out, Cody in. Next. Anything WWE right now is doing is to benefit them. Period, end of story. Tony Khan's smart enough to know that. Tony Khan is also smart enough to focus on his company. He might talk about, other places. I don't love those. And I don't put it on him. Other people do that too. Just like I don't like Punk taking little dumb shots. It doesn't. For what? I liked Tony Storm's press conference thing. That was funny. If it's not funny, like any joke, if it's funny, go for it. If it's not, then it's cringy. If any little side joke or shot you take, if I can get a laugh out of it, okay. If you're just kind of being a bully, Then you're referencing something that people don't even know. And Punk's done that multiple times. I don't think it helps. I've kind of touched on NXT a little bit here. Couple of things I just want to say. When does the no quarter catch crew D'Angelo family story end? Holy hell, that's been going on forever. It's almost like, there you go. Let's get one more in here. See you next week, baby. Can Tony do it again? It's almost like they've run out of stuff to do with them. It's almost like they don't know what else to do with the D'Angelo family. And it's almost like that gimmick probably doesn't fit on Raw or SmackDown. What, are they going to throw people in trunks? You can't have that and have Bloodline do a massive beatdown segment on the same show. Because then the Bloodline stuff, where they beat up Randy Orton and put him through a table, is a little different and feels a little different than the D'Angelo family kidnapping people and maybe throwing them in rivers. Which is why I will continue to say, and I had this epiphany recently, that NXT is basically Lucha Underground and that it lives in its own world and lives by its own rules, and that's okay. But that doesn't mean that some of those gimmicks will translate well to Raw and SmackDown. I said Oro Mensah, Ethan Page is not a pay-per-view level match. It is not. It will happen on Great American Bash, Night 2. Also, remember, they're going to Sci-Fi. Also, because of the Olympics. I'm good with it. Get through it. It's a win for Ethan Page. Yobi, I don't think they're going to translate on a national. I like him a lot. I think all of them are very talented performers who have taken steps forward. Tony's a really good worker. His eighth match ever was War Games. He was an amateur wrestler. So he had that background, but his character, there is definitely talent there. I like Rizzo. I think she's, you know what she reminds me of? William Regal used to put up this set of tweets for every once in a while. And he would talk about it. He would put it up like once every couple of months because he was part of character development in WWE and is obviously back in a similar kind of developing, recruiting role now. And advice he would give, because you would, I think people know he used to run promo class and did stuff after Dusty and all that. He was there, the KO stuff, and and they had a couple of, what is it, Proving Ground or whatever, and he's seeing what the entrance looks like for Aaliyah, and he's like, oh, I don't know what this means, my dear. Like, and he would put up these tweets, and it would talk about how if you want to make it in this business, you need to be able to do stuff that you don't want to do or you don't feel comfortable doing and throw yourself into it. Because if you could do that and be good at it, then you could do stuff that is easier down the road. Then you'll be really good at that stuff. You got to throw yourselves into characters that don't make you feel confident or that you don't have confidence in, or that don't feel comfortable. Rizzo was a track athlete who went to like NC State. And now she's, Carmela Soprano. And doing a hell of a job at it. And is dropped right into the role quite nicely. Luca Crisafino is a wrestling lawyer who is now in a more evolved role of being consigliere. He still wrestles in like business pants, but like he's from Pittsburgh. Like, you ever see his social media, and I appreciate the efforts he's put in. He has wild hair and used to be a much bigger guy and all right, play this role. And I'll tell you what, I always had my eye on him, even when I worked there. I actually pitched an idea of him giving legal advice in a heel type role on the bump, where he would review the transgressions and issues that may have happened, and he would come up with some kind of legal verdict or some kind of case that he could make. Well, the referee was clearly out of position here, and I would like to represent, take your pick a heel. I would like to represent Miz in a case that I think should be brought to Nick Aldis or Adam Pearce and blah, blah, blah. Like that, giving legal advice. Because I think he was fun. And I like that he came up with his business cards. And yeah, you're not going to be a wrestling lawyer in 2024, and you can't take that seriously. As a consigliere, okay. Stacks, I have heard nothing but good things about. Often working in Natty's Orlando dungeon with her and TJ and all them. Worked really hard. Made something of that. Has dropped into that role so nicely. Remember, there was a third, 2 dimes. He's sleeping with the fishes, I guess, and then popped up in AEW. And then Tony's done what he's had to do. To be able to do all those things. To be able to drop in a role that is very different. To really be a character, to act. To not be who you are in real life for the most part. That's impressive. Does that translate to the main roster? No, I don't think it does. But it shows that they have talent. I talked about Kiana James. She's a hell of a worker. Trained at Flatbacks with Tyler Breeze and Sean Spears. They put her in that businesswoman role, and it had those weird porn undertones. And they got away from that. And it was more of just kind of how she dressed, and she evolved her gear, and now they're not doing enough with her on Raw. Becky Lynch was doing that stupid Irish jig stuff. She put everything she could into that. And then we got Steampunk Becky and more of a believable role. That's what good performers are going to do, and that's what good booking will do. But to Regal's point, it was do stuff you're not comfortable with. Cody Rhodes talked about not knowing Stardust was probably not going to do anything for him, not loving it, but throwing everything he could into it, trying to make that work. I'll give you somebody who's always trying to make something work. Well, he did. Now he's not, he's in creative. James Curtin, Spud, Drake Maverick. Every single thing he's done, from TNA to 205 Live to NXT to peeing his pants with AOP, He's done everything he could to make that work. When he was the GM of 205 Live, he would cut promos from his hotel room, and he would get an HDMI cable out and hook the 205 Live logo into the TV so it looked more professional. Hey, we need somebody for the bump to fill in. He was there. I'll show up. He got let go. He still worked through the whole Cruiserweight tournament. They kept him around. They let him go again. He joins Creative. Miz has made everything work to the best of his ability. Some better than others. But you don't see him moping around and crying. Kofi Kingston, same way. Has been handed some shit booking at times. Makes it work. Not everybody's always happy all the time. It's a much happier environment now. But that's what you do. And if you're unhappy and you're mailing it in, it becomes very apparent. You know what? At some point, that gets seen. They go, you know what? It's not worth giving that person that idea or that push. Sometimes you got to work the crap. You got to handle it. And if you show you can handle it, and people realize, you know what? Maybe we didn't give him the best stuff, but he tried the best, or she tried the best. Carmella is another great example of that. She doesn't get nearly enough credit for all the stuff that they've had her try, or her evolving character, whether it be the stuff with Truth, whether it be the stuff when she was doing Mixed Match Challenge with New Day, and she was doing the skits with them, whether she was doing the stuff with Reggie or whatever the hell, Reginald and the Somalia. Always, how do I make this work? How do I alter? How do I get the most out of this? Was never pushed at the level of the horsewomen. She was a hairdresser when she got introduced in NXT. That Enzo and Cass went to her salon to get the hair removal stuff. Then she became part of their group. Then she outlasted both of them. Those are the kind of people that end up making it. And I hope that somebody like a group like the D'Angelo family can still find success, because it feels like they're spinning their wheels, and it's not their fault. A couple other things from NXT last night. That was basically WWE Speed, but a main event. What a wild group of people all in one match. It honestly felt like a match that would be on Death Before Dishonor this weekend. But you know what? You try that out. I'm interested to see what NXT draws this week, because there weren't, the hooks weren't there. The hooks, I don't know if there was a big draw for, other than Joe, the hope of Joe Hendry being around. Trick Williams now dealing with Ashante and Cedric. Seemed like he got pushed down the card a little bit. And I realize he can't just go after the title, but it feels like a very placeholder type feud. I will go back to the point I've been making, though. He's got to work. He's got to work a lot. He's got to work with people that are better than him and more experienced than him, and Cedric Alexander certainly fits that bill. So, to that point, good thing. I just don't want them to miss the boat on Trick. He's super over. Probably more over than his development. And I don't mean that as a knock. That is a fact of where he's at in his career. He's more over than what you would expect for someone with such little experience, which is a good thing. That tells you that he can use this. This is tough to figure out. The wrestling, the more you do it, the more effort you put in. And I've always heard pretty good things about Trick in terms of wanting to get better and listening Hell, he listened to me about certain things when I would talk to him. He just needs reps. Like anything, you just got to work. But he knows how to use this. A lot of people got mad or brought up Obafemi when I said, Tricks, man, what about Oba? I like Obafemi. I'm not saying he can't be a main event star. I think he's better than you might expect for a guy who hasn't had a lot of chance to cut promos. But you're talking about top level main eventing WrestleMania. That's an elite group of people for the most part. And the one thing they all of them, just about all of them, had in common, either they could use this or they had somebody standing next to them who could do this. Trick can already do this at an early part in his career. The wrestling can come, and it doesn't have to be great. The Rock is not some superb worker. Austin's a far better worker than The Rock. But he knew how to use this, and he got people to sell for a friggin' elbow drop with theatrics. And the crowd ate it up. You want to talk about that, like, of all the stuff that people get mad, oh, they don't sell enough of that. How about the other side of it? How about the fact that Rock won matches dropping an elbow where people had to stay down for 45 seconds so he could do it? Yeah, he got spine busted before, whatever. Zoom out. They're still down. They're still down. They're still down. Off a spine buster. Still down. Over here. Over here. And here's a taunt. 1, 2, 3. They oversold for that. It's the opposite of, well, I don't sell a Canadian Destroyer or what. And it happens in both shows. But it's like a good pitcher who's at the end of his career. Pedro Martinez couldn't throw 98 forever, but he knew how to use what he had. I'm a Mets fan. I watched Johan Santana after the Twins years. I watched Tom Glavine after the Braves years. They didn't have their same stuff, but they knew how to use what they had. That's why Jamie Moyer pitched forever. That's why Peyton Manning could still play when his neck was only able to allow him to throw the ball 15, 20 yards down the field. No, he would beat you before the snap. Hulk Hogan worked when he needed to in Japan. Otherwise, it was back rakes, it was punches, it was a clothesline, it was a big boot and a leg drop. And people ate it up because he did this. And he did this. And people loved him. He loved his entrance. Trick's got to just put that together. The Rock had big, entertaining type matches. He didn't have classics. He had classics in terms of what the crowd reacted to, which is the most important thing. Rock Hogan is one of the most exciting matches you will ever watch because of the crowd, because they were back behind Hogan. Because you had two major stars at WrestleMania with a crowd that went, I remember what happened 12 years ago here. I watched Hulk Hogan in Ultimate Warrior. I watched Hulk Hogan for years, Maple Leaf Gardens. I know what that nostalgia is. That wasn't two mat technicians. That was two guys that knew how to work. Now, the level of wrestling and the standard is higher than it used to be. And that's okay. But the people who are always going to get over and stay over are the people who know how to use this. Drew McIntyre and CM Punk haven't had a match yet. They've been feuding for 7 months. There's been some physicality, but there hasn't been even that much of that. They're using this. Drew McIntyre's going on Twitter, pointing out a T-shirt that CM Punk said he didn't have to put somebody else's name on, and it's now happened multiple times, and he makes reference to, hi, Colt Cabana, how you doing? Not a bump is taken there. And people want to see the match that much more. Trick Williams already has this. Trick Williams is making sitcoms, which I don't know if they got like shut down by NXT. Like, he made a sitcom that he posted on his social media. He's made music videos. The people who are going to make it know how to use this, how to use social media correctly. Stokely Hathaway is tremendous at that. Kevin Owens, when he wanted to be on Twitter, tremendous at that. Drew's doing that now. Nyla Rose, we barely see wrestle on AEW TV, but she stays active on there and people like her, and that will keep a fan base up. And if for some reason one day she's not in AEW, she will have a nice run after that because she's created a fan base that way. Because talking and character work matters. The wrestling standard is higher than it used to be. But I don't care what they teach at that PC when they're rolling around and all that stuff. You can learn that anywhere. You got to figure this out. And then things happen. If you stink in the ring, that will be seen. You can't cover that stuff up as easily as it used to be, especially in HD era. That also changed things. If you can't work, that can't get covered up. But the people who are going to thrive in NXT are the ones who can talk and figure out character. Not ones who can do flips and stuff. You can have Kalani Jordan and Sol Ruka matches. That's fine. You can do that. And you can study tapes of Ricochet and Will Ospreay. And as I saw last night, Sol Ruka has been watching her Young Bucks matches, or someone's been showing them to her. That's fine. A little slow motion. Is that enough to carry her? We will see. How's that? We will see. Blood and Guts is tonight. Royal Rampage is on Friday, which makes Rampage pretty much a must-see show because of what's on the line. And it feels like Royal Rampage on Friday is technically a bigger deal than Blood and Guts tonight. Because there are stakes. Holy hell, look what somebody's going to get out of this. I want to pull up the tweet because I want to show the difference. And I'm not saying that everything always has to have clear and obvious stakes. Sometimes matches are just matches. But I want to pull up the tweet. I don't know if we have it done, but I'll pull it up so I can read it correctly. Tony Khan tweeted this 13 hours ago. Thank you all watching WWE. This week means opportunity, excitement, and emotion. Tomorrow, Blood and Guts on Wednesday night, AEW Dynamite on TBS hours from now. Okay, promoted tonight's show. Then join us on TNT this Friday for AEW Rampage for Royal Rampage. Winner gets a world title shot at Grand Slam. I will admit to you, I do not watch Rampage live almost ever. I watch what I need to. There's a lot of wrestling to talk about. A world title opportunity is on the line on Friday. They're taping that tonight, so we're going to know the answer if you're following. I see Philly Mick. Enjoy the show tonight in Nashville. There's a title match opportunity on the line. Someone's going to get a title shot at Grand Slam, which is the biggest. Blood and Guts and Grand Slam are on the same level in terms of non-pay-per-view big shows for the company. There's bigger stakes in that match on Friday. We'll see what comes out of tonight. There are stories to tell. I saw somebody, there was like a map of like, okay, this person's got beef with this person, this, and I get that. I'm willing to say that, yes, we'll probably get Acclaimed versus the Young Bucks at All In. Are we getting Mark Briscoe and Okada? I mean, are we going to get Hangman and Swerve? We already know Swerve's got Bryan. There are. I just want to see something come out of it. What does the winner get out of tonight? If the Elite win, shouldn't the EVPs get more power? Shouldn't that be the case? If Team AEW wins, shouldn't they get their pick of something? They are guaranteed title shot, whatever it is, over the next year. The match will be good. The match has a good history, other than that Jericho fall. I just want it to matter more. That's it. Especially, think about last year. Think about, the Jericho Appreciation Society. Think about Daddy Magic. I think about Mike Santana hurting himself. It's a dangerous match. It's a hell of a spectacle. I love their double ring. I think it looks cool because that cage is far too big. But if you're going to put that much into it in terms of, people's bodies on the line and the structure, just put a little something on it. Put something on it. It was 2 years ago, right? Yeah, okay. Yes, Hangman Okada, I think, is in play too. I want to ask this question. I'll probably ask it again tomorrow. Elite versus BCC. That was good too. Oh, that was the Ibushi one and all that when he did the backdrop into the tax after it was over. And there was a lot of stuff in that match. Do you rather this Hangman or do you rather babyface Hangman? Straight up babyface Hangman, because I don't know what this character is. It seems to be leaning more heel. Who do you like better? Who is your preferred Hangman? I saw they post, I think John Silver, somebody posted that entrance, the Dark Order versus Elite entrance, and hey, oh my goodness, was Hangman the guy. Oh my, I so wonder in a CM Punkless AEW how things would have been different for Hangman. I do wonder. We'll talk more about, of course, Blood and Guts tomorrow. Maybe we'll get lucky and Suzuki will beat Jericho tonight. Maybe. I don't know. I do want to remind you all here of the memberships, because if you sign up right now on any tier, and they start at $2.99, whether it's right above Todd, you go up to the mid card, or you go all the way up to the main event. Any of those tiers that you sign up for, and they start at just $2.99. The membership tiers here at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. You get to watch SummerSlam with me next weekend. If you're on that Todd tier or base level, you get discounts on merch. You'll get to be part of member-only live chats, priority reply to comments. You get to be part of AMAs. You'll get all of that and more if you go to the mid-card level. We'll do live streams of Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, Collision. You get to watch with me and other members. I'll take your questions. Some bonus content will be up there as well, including top 5 SummerSlam matches and a lot more content like that. And you'll get all of that plus more if you go to the highest level, the main event. Here's what you get. We'll follow you from Wrestling Matt 23 and my account, the Matt Camp 23 on Instagram and on X. If you're with us for at least 90 days, you'll get a special piece of merch. We will also provide a random drawing where you get a one-on-one AMA with me if you're in that tier. And one member a month will be chosen at random to choose a past wrestling event to watch with myself and other members. And yes, while we're doing the SummerSlam watch-along, watch party, that will not be a regular thing for all tiers. For SummerSlam it will be, but after that, we will be doing that with everybody in the Matt event. But anybody who signs up for $2.99, which is our lowest level, will get to watch, or higher, will get to watch SummerSlam right here. Thank you, Legendary Yo, for becoming a member. I appreciate the support. I really appreciate that, as we all do. We're happy to have you. More of you certainly can sign up. Check out thewrestlingmatchshow.com. Go back and watch our archives. Tomorrow we'll be doing a full review of Blood and Guts. all about AEW Dynamite, any other news that might break. We are over 4,000 subscribers. We thank you for that. If you're just joining us, maybe you missed some things. We've had interviews with Joey Janela, the former Zack Ryder, Matt Cardona, Chef Reactions, Dan Reichert from Giant Bomb, who also worked with me at WWE. We told some great stories about working there together. We're working on someone who's currently a champion in the world of professional wrestling, who has been mentioned on this show today. Could be joining us very, very soon. We'll see if WWE allows people to come on. It's not somebody from WWE. He used to be in WWE. WWE's, I think I mentioned this the other day. I've just been told they're not willing to give us anybody right now. But we're still working on those things. And you could, of course, with us getting over 4,000 subscribers and some of the things you may have seen, I talked all about Bobby Lashley leaving WWE, my interactions with him, the promo of his life that I don't think a lot of people saw, creative issues, pitches that were for other talent to be in the Hurt business that didn't end up in the Hurt business, my interactions with Bobby, my interactions with MVP. That was from Monday's episode. Yesterday, did some Raw review, but ended up going on a whole thing about how CM Punk showed up on WWE Backstage, how I knew about it, what the reaction was within the company, how it was treated. A couple ideas that were thrown around, even though CM Punk was not a WWE employee, talent, independent contractor. Why those didn't go anywhere. And the interaction CM Punk has had with Steve Austin. And would CM Punk be the only real person left for Steve Austin to come back and face after what he did at WrestleMania a couple years ago? Just some of the things you can go check out at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you're following us on social media, WrestlingMat23. We have our reels going up on Instagram. We tell you about some of the segments that we have put together from past shows. And, of course, you can check all that out on X, Twitter as well. And make sure you subscribe here on YouTube at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. You won't miss a thing. Love having you guys in the chat. I want to be the most interactive pro wrestling show out there. I think we're doing that. I will be up on WrestleNomics post-wrestling coming up at 3:30 today. So in an hour, I'll be joining John Pollock and Brandon Thurston. We're going to talk about a lot of things. I'm not really sure. I'll also be on The Lapsed Fan coming up soon. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but that will be happening. And I'm on Busted Open tomorrow with Tommy Dreamer and on Friday with Nick Nemeth, TNA World Champion, and Thunder Rosa. So I am co-hosting with Tommy Dreamer tomorrow, 9 to noon on Busted Open, and then Thunder and Nick on Friday. I'll also be on Busted Open next Thursday, August 1st with Tommy Dreamer. So I'm popping up at a lot of places, and your support today is a big part of that. I thank you so very much for joining us. I like to be busy. I like to be talking with you. A lot of the stuff I talked about today wasn't planned, but you guys kind of set me in that direction, and I love that. Enjoy Blood and Guts tonight. I hope everybody tunes in. Also, the president's talking, so, multi-screen it if you need to. And if you're not in America, don't worry about Joe. Just watch Blood and Guts tonight. Get excited for that so you can come talk about it with me tomorrow. Everybody, thank you very much. I'll be back tomorrow when we'll be talking about wrestling even more right here at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. See you tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern.